Whether you're new to pool and practicing the basics, or a more experienced player performing drills to improve your shot making and positional play, the Drill Partner is perfect for you.
Welcome back to another episode of Dogging It. I am Molina Mike. We got Michael Panozzo here of Billiards Digest. Mike, how are you, my man?
Good. Everything's good.
Everything's great, especially when the WPA makes a post on a Friday or Saturday. Everything's great, Mike. It's wonderful. Life is real good. Yeah. We got lots of stuff to dive into. The Pennsylvania Open is over. You want to say hi, babe? There you go. She's getting ready to get out of here for the day. She's waiting for Daddy's show to be over. Pennsylvania Open is over. Heading out to California here pretty soon for the Brendan Crockett Memorial. Lots of other pool news going on. Some hayball stuff going on, Mike. China Open starting. I don't know where you want to begin, Mike, but let's start somewhere, buddy. Come on.
I like her bow.
Oh yeah, she's big on. You know what, man? These girls, they're rough, man. They're big on like everything's got to be matching and color coordinated, and you know, it's don't have kids, Mike. Trust me. Don't, just don't.
If I have kids at this point in my life, there's going to be some real problems. That's
some serious problems for you, buddy. Yeah, ain't that the truth?
See, little Chris is on here. How you doing? How's the recovery?
Yeah, I saw him having some. What was it, like ankle surgery or something along those lines?
Fuse.
Yeah.
Little ankle bone fusion.
Yeah, sounds painful.
Yeah, that's big stuff. Well, I wish you well.
Sure.
Yeah, Pennsylvania Open. I mean, that was, it kind of, or he says, well, it moves Skyler, and Skyler won the Pennsylvania Open. It's great to see, just 'cause it's great to see him, run through a tournament and win again. It wasn't the deepest field in the history of the world, but it was good at the top. The top players all kind of made it there to that last stage, and Skyler had the big comeback against Mika to get to the final, and then rolled over Jonas in the finals. So great to see that. And with that win, it moved him into the spot right behind Tyler for the automatic spot on Team USA, and bumped Oscar down to essentially fifth. It's everybody says it gives him some leeway to, make the wild card picks, but it's really not going to change much of anything, is it?
You mean
if he gets the third automatic spot, how does that change the two wild card picks? Does it? I don't think it changes it at all.
I'll ask you the same question. I think it does, but I'll ask you the
same question. I don't think it does at all, because I think you're still looking at either Tyler or Oscar getting one of those picks, and then the other and Billy being under consideration for the last pick. So I don't think that changes whether, if Tyler locks up number 3 and Skyler has to take one of the two wild cards, that still leaves the last wild card up to Oscar or Billy. If in our minds, as far as narrowing down who the real possibilities are.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it really changes anything. Unless the person that Skyler would leave off the team got the third automatic spot.
Well,
does that make sense?
Yeah. I think it right now, like obviously Tyler having, more say into his fate is big, and I'm sure with the other hand, Sky would like to have more control, as far now, whether or not he were to choose him on the team, we'll find out, just depending on how the cards end up shaking out. But I do think he would rather be in that third automatic spot, even if it's not so much for the Moscone Cup stuff, maybe more for confidence and
yeah, sure, that I can buy. I mean, yeah, of course you want to continue. that will mean that he had a good event in Hanoi or the Perry Open or Virginia, one or the other. So So
Yeah, I mean, it's all about momentum right now for sure. But when it comes to the last three guys into consideration, I think that if you're Tyler, you want to do whatever you can to make sure you're staying in that third spot for sure.
well, yeah, and same with Oscar. I mean, the best way to to not leave it to chance is to get the third spot. So you
Yeah,
got three guys. You got three guys fighting for the third spot with three events to go. Right.
and everyone's right there. Everyone's right there. Tyler's sitting, I think, like on a $7,000 cushion, give or take. Ahead of both those guys. We talked about Billy not being there in Pennsylvania a few days ago. Not sure what the schedule is going to be like. I'd imagine he'll be playing the Battle of the Bull, but then again, I would have thought he would have been out there in Pennsylvania as well. For
Yeah.
sure, you better be out there for the Hanoi Open. But I just think that if you're Sky, um, getting the automatic means that it's full control over whose team it is. That's like, in other words, it being his. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So because then he gets the two wild card picks where he's not just deferred to being one of the two and then essentially only getting to pick one other guy. Now I'm not saying he would pick Tyler still or he wouldn't, but I just you hear things throughout the year, and if you're gonna put a lot of weight on chemistry and energy and things like that when it comes to Billy, you would consider the other side of it when it comes to what are their opinions on Tyler being in that group of guys. Now I know he's been on that team plenty of times, but um, I don't know, Mike. It's just, I think that if you're Tyler, though, you're loving where you're at. You held serve for the most part.
Yeah.
I heard he had kind of a brutal hill loss to Jonas where he hooked himself with like four balls left. So that's got to sting a little bit because you would
Yeah.
have liked. Tyler does step up against American players pretty good. Like he plays all these American guys really well, and so Shane and yeah, baby, you can have it. Shane and everyone else. When it comes time to playing tournaments, and my point is that if he would have played Sky, he would have given him more of a fight than like a 9-1 of what Jonas ended up.
Yeah, it ended up like 13-4 or something. It was like,
Oh, was it?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I didn't get to watch a whole lot of that last day. I was more scoreboard watching than anything else, Mike. But um, Raymond mentions in the chat only one guy has gotten a perfect record against Josh. So there's
I
there's
think
that you got to weigh.
Raymond playing, in the Moscone Cup, barefooted in Florida, with the beard and no shoes on. I think that would be a classic look.
Is he going shirtless, Mike? If you're
That,
going shoeless,
I'm betting against that. But he plays in his house shoeless all the time, so it's kind of a.
I heard a story where
It's a Zen thing.
I heard the story. It's true. Where I heard Sky is the best shirtless pool player on the planet. He says, if I'm
How does
playing,
that even become a category?
because this is where I think I heard it from, was that he was training, I think, at the house, right? Because he's got the kids there and everything. So when he'll go and hit balls, it's on the Rasson, shirtless. And I heard his game steps up about an extra ball whenever he ain't got a shirt on, Mike. I'm just saying. So
Maybe we should have a jersey made that looks like he's not wearing a shirt.
yeah. Oh, just like the shirt that looks
hairy
like a shirtless.
Yeah, for sure.
There's an idea for sure. Lance in the chat mentioned Lucas Werner. Mike, do we see any other Americans kind of being part of this conversation right now?
I don't. I don't see anybody else being a cat. Justin Bergman, Lucas, any of these guys. I mean, every time this year, people come up with this guy should get a shot. This guy's great, whatever. Skyler's not. I don't think Skyler's going to dip that far into the pool. Outside of some kind of comfort zone, and pick someone out of the blue. Shane Wolford, something like that. I just don't see any of that happening. I think it's, we've talked about it before. I think it's three guys for two spots, and we'll see what it ends up being. You think differently or no?
No. I think it's just a case of too little, too late. So for some of these guys. Leo mentions Tyler's record against Shane and Federer. Tyler lost a Hill match to Shane earlier this year in a big tournament. I don't remember which one it was, and I know he double dipped Shane last year, if I'm not mistaken, in the Texas Open, or at least beat him in the final. So um, don't
Well,
be don't be fooled by what your thoughts may be, because Tyler does play these guys pretty well. So, and
yeah, he does, but
he breaks the balls great.
he's not going to be playing any of them in the Moscone Cup. I want to know how his records are against the European guys.
Well, good
and
point
who
there,
else has
Mike.
got good records against the European guys.
Well, here's my thing when it comes to having that
I think he's
discussion
done fairly well this year, actually.
well, with some of these guys, Mike, it's playing like, how are you faring playing in big boy tournaments versus these regional ones where I feel like you can get away with a lot more, whether it's pocket size or if you're racking your own, or
Right.
maybe not a new one enforcing any kind of soft breaks or things like that, Mike, because Tyler's couple wins this year have all came with racking your own um, events. Those back to back wins that he had in the middle of the year, and it's not that. Well, I mean, I don't see that same level of consistency when you think about like a big major open event. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I agree. But I think that both he and Oscar have had a couple of good wins against, uh, European or Asian players this year. That 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 always those are the things that I remember. When you're out of your comfort zone of playing a Shane or a Skyler for the 97th time, all of a sudden you go up against Francisco or something like that. How did you hold up? And I think that they've both done okay this year. So, I think that's something that I would focus on more.
Yeah, I mean, look, Oscar's had opportunities to gain ground on Tyler, and
Yeah,
and
missed a couple
um,
chances, two in a row in Seattle and Pennsylvania.
at an important time of the year, and you can't shy away from it, and he wouldn't, for that matter.
Right.
He knows where he's at, and what those meant to him, and what that opportunity was for him as well. Now you talk about big wins. He's beaten Shaw this year. He's beaten Filler this year. He just got through beating FSR this year. And while I don't want to put like super emphasis versus rankings on like one-off wins, it's like the names mean something, especially when it comes to guys who you're going to be facing come this December. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, you walk into the arena against the guy, you see him, and you're like, I know I can win this match because I've done it this year.
right, and a lot of these guys, Mike, like a Shane or a Federer or Josh, or these guys they can intimidate you without even putting their cue together, just because of the resume and their history, Mike. So when you kind of have that mental edge where you're not afraid of that guy sitting across from you, it does make a big difference. When it comes to other Americans kind of being put in consideration, while I think there's still opportunity, I think it's you've I don't want to say you shit the bed for the 3/4 of the year, but you just haven't done enough up until this point. So like a guy like Wolford, a guy like Lucas, and I like Lucas,
Yeah,
but
he's got a ways to go. That's all. I mean, he's got a ways to go in terms of his game, in terms of his, competing against all these guys regularly, in terms of showing that he wants to be in there, things like that. I mean, he's young, he's more interested in gambling and whatever right now. That's fine. I get all that. But just because he's a good young player, I'm not all of a sudden going to throw him in the Moscone Cup. And other guys have been beating their head against the wall, for a whole year to try to be on that team.
yeah, you have to like do something where you take control of that conversation, and none of them have
Right.
done it.
Do
And
you
there's
want it? Do you want it? Control it. Show me you want it, and then, you know,
yeah,
and that's why I like Tyler and Oscar this year.
and I'm sure they'd love the opportunity, Mike. Wolford and Lucas and BJ for that matter. But um, it's like in order to get on in that group of guys, you gotta dig a little deeper. And so the Hanoi Open is still available. The Wolf's Den is a pretty decent prize fund as well, so they can still make moves, Mike. They're
Yeah,
still
yeah,
like
plenty
in
of
theory.
yeah. These rankings could change a lot between now and when Hanoi starts. Between Virginia and Perry Open,
Yeah.
Perry Open was a big money event. So
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, and this is why I put more emphasis on the bowl, because if you think about the Battle of the Bowl, you're not going to fade everyone and their mama on the other
yeah,
side of
no, yeah, Perry Open's
I
gonna be a
mean,
little
other side
different
of the
field
world.
than
Yeah.
both.
I mean, it's going to be it's going to be a mini Hanoi Open,
It is.
So with everybody there. So in other words, when you think about value on your dollar, right, when it comes to how much you're spending versus what your upside is, and also keeping into consideration who you're going to have to fade, right? I'd rather stay on this side and try to get a pretty decent score versus going over there. Now, all those guys are going over there, and they better go over there, because anyone who's up for consideration needs to be playing all those events.
Yeah.
Like if Billy's a no show in Hanoi or in Perry or in the Bull, I don't know how the hell you could even put him part of the conversation. Never mind the fact that he's way down there when it comes to rankings and wins this year, and I mean any kind of metric you want to measure him by outside of like the energy, right? Like you can't make an argument for. So for him especially, this is where you have to like start getting some tallies up there, right? You got to start getting some some names on the belt there, Mike, to
Yeah.
say, hey, this is why I belong on this team, outside of just I'm buddies with the guy who makes the decisions.
You got to get out there and at least, show that there's no dust on your cue and there's no rust in your arm. You got to get out there and at least show you're hitting balls a little bit and show you've got some interest in it.
Let me know in the chat who you guys think should be the top 5 players for this year's Moscone Cup. We got, I think, another 3 more weeks to go before the third pick is announced, the automatic pick, that is, after the Hanoi Open. Um, I'm excited to go out there, Mike. It's going to be my first time going overseas. And, kind of what the U.S. Open was last year, I'm just ready for that kind of drama this year for the Hanoi Open, because there's also going to be moves on the European side that are going to be up for grabs as well. I'm sure there's going to be some more twists when it comes to that side of it. But the American side, it being so neck and neck, that's where I really can't wait to check out and see um, who's gonna make a move when it's time, Mike, because it's time
Yeah.
now. Everything you worked for all year long, this is what you put yourself in position for, and that's really all you can ask for any of these guys, right? I mean,
Yeah.
obviously you'd want to be like Federer right now and have a $250,000 lead on everyone, but it's not always going to work out that way,
No, not always. Not always.
Yeah.
Well, before we get off Pennsylvania, are we going to talk Mika at all?
I'd love to talk Mika. I'd love to talk Mika. A lot of comments in there saying, and it's all opinions amongst the same 3 guys. So, interestingly enough, so I'd love to talk Mika. Mike, I meant to have the clip queued up so that way we can see it, but maybe you can give some backstory here and.
I don't think there's a lot to see on the clip. I mean, it was a.
There was something to see, Mike. There was something to see.
Yeah, you saw him throw his cue on the table, and then he walked over and he shook Shane's hand.
Well, set the stage for me, Mike. Maybe some of these.
Well, the stage is he had a race to 9. He had an 8-5 lead on Skyler. All of a sudden, it's 8-8. Meek gets to the table. He's running out. He's really in pretty good position. Gets himself a little funny late in the rack and ends up with not where he wanted to be on the 8-ball, and plays. Still made it and was going to play 2 rails down for the 9-ball, and the second rail ended up being the side pocket. So he scratched and immediately just threw his cue, and the table kind of slid it as hard as he could into the rail and swiped the 9-ball away, and gave up the match. After which, he immediately went over and shook Skyler's hand, and then kind of walked over and, grabbed his cue case, whatever, ended up shaking the referee's hand, and, was just not a happy person. So
out of character for Mika, Mike. I'm shocked to hear this story right now.
Well, you know what? I mean, at that point, how many players is it are just going to say, "Oh, damn,"
Yeah.
It's pool. It happens. No, I mean, and I made a comment in a post about it myself. They just said, this is not everybody's going to do that, but this is Mika. This is who he is. And I said it was totally in step with his game. His game's the same way. It's built on emotion. It's built on aggression. It's built on balls out play. It's, all that stuff. So his reaction to
Preach, Mike.
scratching, on an 8-ball hill to reach a final is going to be a little snap. And so, I didn't, it's one thing if he'd have taken his cue. I mean, we've seen Earl snap his cue before. We've seen other guys snap their cue before. This wasn't even in the ballpark with any of those. But it's just too easy for people to jump on anybody these days and say what a bad sport they are and say what a whiner they are, what a crybaby they are, how it sets the sport back 50 years, all this kind of garbage. And it just kind of, listen, it's, I had no issue with it at all. If he'd have called out the ref or called out the equipment or called out Skyler or something, a little bit of a different story. But he didn't. He just, it's, it's kind of, it wasn't, to me, it wasn't too much different when he played Shane and had the big lead in the World Championship and lost. Only he wasn't at the table. He had to just sit there and fade it. And you could see him with the hand gestures, shake his head the whole time. And it was typical Mika. But, he didn't go off the air. I mean, he could have.
No, he went off the air, I'm sure, Mike. There just wasn't a camera on him whenever that happened. I would bet some serious pile of money that he went off the air.
No, he didn't slam a cue down. He didn't.
No, that he didn't.
But, he was not a happy person. So, I had no issue with the way he handled that. If that's the worst thing that someone does, losing a match like that in that way, then, then I think the sport needs some blood because I don't want to see a bunch of mannequins. I like guys with emotion, and Mika's one of them. Mika, it's why we watch him play. He's fun to watch.
Mika's a fucking competitor through and through, and he's exciting. He's exciting to watch. He's one of the reasons why I fell in love with Poole was his style of play. Because ultra aggressive, super offensive, not afraid of big shots. Charismatic, passionate. He can be a little cocky sometimes, depending on how you're receiving him. But that's just who he is. And
that's how players get to where they get. A lot of them.
You have to be wired. You have to be wired different.
Got to be in your face. They got to be whatever. Some people do. Some people don't. But that's the way certain players that without that they wouldn't have gotten where they got. Right. So again, no problem with it.
No, none whatsoever for me either, Mike. I don't think he disrespected Tournament or Sky or was trying to upstage anyone. And for Mika, look, we spend all year long talking about the Moscone Cup and this and that. Mika's measuring stick is here, Mike. It's within himself. You know what I mean? Because he expects like a certain level of greatness from his own right, and so that's whenever he doesn't achieve that, that's whenever he gets frustrated, but it's within him, and I love that about him. Poole needs more of Mika and that kind of spirit that he carries and that kind of fire, Mike. If the sport had another 20 of them, I don't want to be like, oh, well, this is the reason why Poole's in the state that it's in, but Mika's marketable, and so he's why you want to tune in. He's got a little bit of Earl in him, and I think that this generation of players has like lost that charisma and that charm or personality or whatever you want to go and say, that passion. That's part of the reason why I love Albin, because Albin will have these moments where like you'll get to see his true, pissed off or passionate or upset demeanor. You know what I mean? And I know he tries to keep it behind the curtain, but whenever it shows its face, and it did last year in a heartbreaking way at the Hanoi Open, this is what like makes you want to root for these guys, at least for me anyway, Mike. You know what I'm saying? Because you really get to see like how bad that dude wanted it. And we're talking about, no disrespect, we're talking about the Pennsylvania Open here. It's wasn't like you're losing after a 10-1 lead against Shane for another shot at a world championship here, And so to have that kind of like fire and passion, and it just shows like what competing and playing at the highest level means to that dude, I love that about him personally, Mike. I really do.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of players who I would love to see have that like killer instinct edge to them, and show more heart and fire. And maybe you got to let it out, And look, that's just like you said, Mike. That's who he's been his entire career. This is nothing new. I'm not gonna crucify him for that by any means. I love the fact that he still shows that kind of passion for wanting to do well. I mean, more importantly, like look at where I know it wasn't like the deepest of fields, but we consider Sky a top tier player, right? Or maybe that second tier type player. So for Mika, given everything he's been through and not competing with that same, just as far as a schedule
Right.
compared to others, you know what I mean, and then still having that type of consistency when it comes to his game just shows the player that he is, Mike, and the champion that he is.
Yeah.
Um, I love that about him personally. I didn't get to see a lot of like the shit talking posts, Mike. I'll be honest with you. Maybe I'm just in a bubble here. I don't know where they were at or where the fans were chirping in at, but I saw your post, which was great, by the way, and I saw the clip before I saw your post, and I was just like, all right,
Yeah.
okay. But I saw your post, which was great. And by the way, that photograph, whoever took it, Mike, maybe you can give a shout out, was an amazing photo. And
Pete
it just
Merritt.
really, yeah, it really just encompasses who Mika is.
Yeah.
You can't like either you're born with that or you're not. That's not something you can go and develop. And that's like in him, Mike. Those are like his roots, right? You got to see like that dude's soul when you see a photo like that,
Yeah, no, there was a lot of emotion in that photo, and yeah, it was a great shot. It really captured the moment so perfectly. I I gotta comment on Jenny Ann.
What did she say, Mike?
She was talking about, it's not the worst she's seen, of someone reacting poorly to a loss. And she mentioned Fabio Petroni's Super Billiard Expo appearance some years ago. And Fabio Petroni was an Italian player, was on a Moscone Cup team once for Team Europe in the old days, whatever, and was a little flaky, and missed a shot to lose the end of a match, and promptly slammed his head against the rail.
What do you mean, like
Head
that?
first, forehead against the rail, split his head wide open.
Did he really?
Yeah,
Yikes!
yeah.
Yikes!
You still got a nice little scar from that.
Well, I'm sure. He'd be a little concussed, or like, if his head,
And
if
the
his
thing
head gets
about
rattled.
Fabio was a little concussed before that too. So
Yeah.
Someone's saying we're frozen and the video cut out.
I'm not sure, Mike. I got decent internet. Let me know in the chat if you guys can hear me. All right, we're rolling through about 30 minutes in. Get a lot of about the internet. I don't know, Mike. My feed seems to be pretty good. Let me check my. Maybe it was the Mika fans, or the Mika haters rather. Let me see here.
Okay, I think we're back in action according to Jenny Ann. After I gave her a plug, we froze up.
Well, Mike did give you a plug, Jenny, and yeah, I think it says was frozen. Okay, now video's good. Good now. Okay, appreciate it, guys. Man, I wish is there a video of that dude busting his head on the table?
That was kind of a
Someone didn't do their job, Mike. This is why I love being out at tournaments because I love capturing moments like that. And there's some where like listen, I love seeing the passion in some of these guys. I really do. And you may call them poor sports, and they may be. Some of them may be. And I've seen plenty of wine. I don't want to say plenty. I've seen more often professionals than I do get to see the whiners and the guys who are just bitter and acting like kids. But I love seeing these guys who want it, Mike. I do,
Yeah. It's got to mean something to you.
And you mentioned like mannequins. You're right, Mike, because there's so many guys that are just there and they're just, sitting there and stoic.
And it's not always like they're boring people. You talked about Alvin showing emotion.
Oh, it is a lot of time, Mike. A lot of times they are boring.
Alvin, when he tries, there's some people try to keep their emotions under as part of their technique, breathing technique, or to keep themselves calm, things like that. it's not like they don't have any personality or that they're not boiling underneath. They've just tried to develop ways to keep themselves chilled, right? So some people practice that. Some people want to let it out, and so everybody's different. That's what you like, it creates different people that you root for or against or whatever, or do you like or you don't like for whatever reason.
No, I think it's a lot of it to keep that heart rate down, right, and to manage their pressure and in those moments. And you can see guys that are like um, consciously trying to achieve that. Mike, I saw it with Robbie Capito whenever he
Yeah,
was
Robbie Capito.
um, competing. He's sitting there in his chair, and you can see like how important that his breathing was and things like that. I think I might have lost you, Mike. You froze up on me a little bit.
Yeah, I sure did. Can you hear me?
But yeah, I can hear you now, Mike. But I love
Good,
that.
look good frozen up, man. That's
Yeah,
not.
I can appreciate that, Mike, for sure. And I love guys paying attention to their mental part of their game, and trying to achieve that. But like, listen, sometimes you can channel that in a different way and let out a yell or a cheer or whatever. Jason does that quite a bit whenever it's a big spot. And I don't think he's doing it to upstage. And some people may say like it's classless or it's this or that. Look, you see it in snooker where guys are there, Ronnie's there, fist pumping after a big one or whatever. You know what I mean? I want personality in my sports, Mike. I do. I'm sitting there watching football last night, Mike. That Eagles and Falcons game, and it's like every first down they're showing off. Every defensive turnover, those guys are cheering. You know what I mean? Like I want some damn personality out there, Mike. And Poole doesn't have it. You know, it really doesn't. And I feel like it's a really big void here. And this is where like players showing off their social media is a big piece of that puzzle. But
Yeah,
like I want to see the rivalry, Mike. I want to see Federer get annoyed with Jason, losing in Hanoi last year. I want to see Filler be a heel. I want to see people root for Shane. I want to see all these things, Mike. And
yeah,
the irony of like this whole conversation is how Shane is so popular because like he's got no personality for the most part whenever he's out there, and yet like fans just can't get enough. You know what I'm saying, Mike? It's the
yeah.
wildest thing.
Yeah,
Um,
it helps
but
too.
I
Federer's
want
not the most. Federer's got tons of fans too, and he's not the most like flamboyant at the table either, right? But here's
well,
go ahead.
I think with Federer, I think Federer tries to push that more. I think he's very sharp.
He's very
Um,
aware.
yes, 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 and I feel like he knows the importance of playing that up and having some charisma to some extent. And I think like at certain parts, especially of his like of big matches, he ain't gonna do that in the third round. But like in big matches at the end,
Yeah,
he'll let it out, and sometimes it looks a little awkward because you can tell it's a little forced.
yeah,
But like you said, he's very aware, and I love that about him. He's he's uncomfortable doing it. You can tell at times, but he's still doing it, and I love that.
yeah.
I want more guys to show more passion, and you'll get some great moments like that, Mike.
You will. Here's something that I was thinking of earlier today because I know we're now going to transition to Hanoi, the Vietnam Perry Open in Hanoi. All these pool players who all of a sudden are putting up posts in Vietnamese.
Every one of them.
Everybody's trying to get their fan base in Vietnam. It's so funny to see that now. Francisco's got all these posts and translated into Vietnamese, and Federer did it, and Josh does it, and there have been like 2 or 3 other players that I've seen who are really trying to leverage this Vietnamese enthusiasm to build their own little fan bases. And so I think these guys are going to go over there and be more animated than they usually are because they know that that's a fan base that all of a sudden can like move the needle on your social media response because there's so many, there's such rabid fans out there, so many of them. So it's been really kind of funny to watch. And I give them credit, 3-4 years ago, players didn't know how to utilize social media at all, except for a few people. And now they're really kind of understanding how it works. And they're all like, I got to get me a piece of that Vietnam crowd because they love pool, and I want them on my side. So I love seeing that happen. I mean, it's smart. It shows that they're aware, and so it's going to be interesting to see who becomes like big fan favorites this year out there.
No, I mean, this is where, Federer's very much a pioneer in that regard, and you got to give him a lot of respect and for that. All those guys you mentioned, right, who are making money now by doing tours in Vietnam and things like that, they owe it to that kid Federer. They really do, because he was the one that kind of cracked that code and really just peeled that back to see what all was back there. You know what I mean, Mike?
But he
An opportunity.
was smart enough to recognize it when he
Yeah,
walked
exactly.
into Hanoi last year. I don't think he had any idea that people there really knew who he was, and all of a sudden, they were like clamoring around him like he was Michael Jordan, and so he was smart enough to take it, to leverage that and start to use that to his advantage and gain more fans there, and that's a smart
For
thing.
sure.
Yeah,
it's very shrewd. And I really appreciate that about him because he's a real savvy kid in that regard. And
can you imagine how many autographed cue balls he's going to sell in Vietnam? He probably
his hand's going to be like this.
He probably shipped over a container. Yeah. He's been signing autographs for like the last 3 weeks on pool balls.
No, but that's where like he's the consummate professional because you'll see him there. And he said last year, and I heard a whole bunch of stories of him staying for hours and hours and hours, just taking photos with everyone and signing as many as he could. And it is about building up his brand, which in turn they can go and leverage for sponsorships and things outside of pool as well, Mike. I very much appreciate that part of it because other players are now starting to do the same thing, and this is where we talked about, whenever we brought up Josh and I mentioned how much is this going to cost them, like in the long run when it comes to opportunities, it'll be interesting to see over the course of however many years, you know what I mean, or if there is any issue with him going to Vietnam, if fans give him any shit about it, Now I don't know if they will or not. But there seemed to be a lot of passionate fans who weren't so happy with him online, Mike.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I think the Vietnamese fan base, he spent some time over there before New Zealand, right? So, I think that he's trying to work that crowd too. His sponsor Predator is going over there next year with a tournament, World 10 Ball. So you figure, I don't care what the WPA ruling is after Hanoi, Josh will be able to play in the World 10 Ball next year. Just somehow or another, it's going to work itself out. So I think that he's, everybody, including, Mantram, including the WPA, including Predator, including all the players, they've all of a sudden, they've all jumped on the Vietnam bandwagon in the past year. And that's where everybody's going to try to plant seeds. Whether you're a tournament promoter, whether you're a WPA, whether you're a player, everybody's trying to plant seeds there going forward.
No, and that's the reason why everyone's fighting over that market, Mike. Because it is so valuable from a number of different aspects, no matter who you are, right? They see the fan base. I've heard so many stories about, pool rooms with over 70 plus tables all over the place, and so the fans are different. You see Predator making a move over there with their event, Matchroom, and all the ACBS and WPA drama as far as the Hanoi Open. And that's like the battleground right now, Mike. You know what I mean? That's the one people don't want to lose their grip on.
Right.
And so we saw it this past weekend. Maybe we can transition over to that WPA post. You want to give a little backstory on that and what took place over the weekend, Mike?
With the Perry?
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't we talk about this a couple of days ago when we met over the weekend or Friday or whatever? But anyways, the Perry Open is right before Hanoi, and Hanoi is considered the line in the sand on when WPA was going to, the first quote unsanctioned tournament that WPA was going to start reacting to in terms of player suspensions.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden they come out and they say we're sanctioning the Perry Open, because apparently no one did the math at WPA to figure out that the Perry Open indeed was a large enough added money and international field that it required sanctioning. So now the Perry Open theoretically should have been that line in the sand. But because they hadn't called it out earlier, there were a lot of players who are still considered in good stead with the WPA who had made plans to play there, right? So they had to kind of backpedal and say, okay, we'll just go ahead and sanction the Perry Open so that nobody has to worry about getting penalized for playing over there. And the kind of, comical thing about it is they throw around the word sanctions. It's kind of funny. They did it with Matchroom earlier in the year. We're gonna consider, we're gonna sanction all these or other events, and nobody's asking for it. Perry Open.
That's a big point of interest here in this whole puzzle, Mike.
It's just kind of funny. I mean, it's like Perry Open's like, well, we didn't ask it for sanctioning. We don't know what does sanctioning even mean at that point. All it means is, what they should do realistically is change their language to a waiver. What they're going to do is waive any restrictions on the Perry Open. That way, it doesn't make it seem like the Perry Open promoters had asked for this or want it or are paying for it. They could just say, we're waiving our restrictions on the Perry Open. Anybody can play in it. Just be done with it. But this thing, we decided to sanction it. It's like,
you're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome, players. You're welcome. That's like, look, it's just like this reoccurring theme of like the WPA trying to play the pool world like they're dumber than what they really are, because the way that they phrase it on there, we're going to go ahead and sanction it for you guys. We're doing y'all a favor.
Yeah, we're doing you a solid.
Yeah. You know where to send the check.
Again, I get the point of what they were trying to do and why they tried to do it, although I don't know why it took until 2 weeks before the Perry Open for them to figure out that it was a sanctionable event. Someone's not doing it because they're too worried about other things going on. They're not even paying attention to what's on the schedule.
Indeed, Mike. Indeed. Yeah.
So again, just save yourself some embarrassment and just say, we're waiving this event. This event should have been sanctioned. It's not, but we're waiving it. You can still play. That's it. Just be done with it.
Well, they mentioned all these other events, like you mentioned, that they were sanctioning by Matchroom. Look, let's just tell it like it is. Number one, the promoter of the Perry event did not ask for sanctioning, right? He mentioned that on his statement that he put out.
Mike Zuglin, the Turning Stone. They said that, there was a big word that was WPA sanctioned. Mike Zuglin was like, I don't even know who the WPA is.
Really?
Yeah. And so, it's just kind of comical in that respect.
Yeah, and the way that they do it is like they try to just spin it like they're doing everyone a solid or being advocates for the players, and it doesn't make much of any sense because we all see through the bullshit. Them mentioning U.S. Open and Moscone Cup and all these things they sanction throughout the year. Look, with the same hand, Matchroom never asked them to sanction any of those events either. Now in that same press release, they mentioned the Hanoi Open and we were never requested sanctioning. But the irony is, Mike, they never requested sanctioning on anything that they're sanctioning. So why can't they do the same thing for the Hanoi Open? There's a lot more questions than answers when it comes to that, Mike. And we all know how important, and we mentioned before, that market is. I don't think anyone wants to loosen that grip or lose control over it. And that's the reason why there are all these issues surrounding that event. I don't know what's going to happen, Mike. We've seen them play poker before and them fold and bluff in the WPA. Aishan said as much before, that's what they were trying to do earlier this year. But the timing of it is just like you just make yourself look more foolish than anything else, Mike, if you're the WPA. And it's just like this recurring theme of over and over and over again, you ending up with pie on your face when I think they're trying to do good, because surely they can't be that dumb. And I don't want to, I hate to be that crude about it, but
they are that dumb, and cops stop calling them Shirley.
Yeah. You know what I mean, Mike? For the life of me, I have a hard time wrapping my head around it, Mike.
Yeah, no, it's a very confusing thing, but again, the line in the sand is Hanoi, and we'll have a really good idea of who's got the leverage, who's in the position of strength after Hanoi. So if after Hanoi, the Joshes and Albans and Dennis Graves and Mario Hees and whoever keep going and playing a WPA event, then the WPA showed that it has more strength than we're giving it credit for. If Hanoi Open happens and all those guys never play in another WPA event, including the World 10 Ball coming up next year in Vietnam, then we'll know that Matchroom is got the upper hand. So, I was hoping that someone would come to their senses before the Hanoi Open, but apparently that's not going to happen. So after Hanoi Open, then we're going to find out who's got the leverage.
Well, I mean, I don't know, Mike. I haven't seen a players list. I saw a post from Darren Appleton stating that he's going to be out there in Vietnam, but he won't be playing. Now, I know he's not a top 100 pro, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, he's a great player, and I'm not trying to,
he's keeping his options open.
Yeah, exactly.
With his career, and the fact that Hayball is the WPA thing, which is that's probably the what moved him the strongest into that position of playing picking the WPA events, his ability to continue to play in Hayball. So, I mean, I understand there are going to be some players like that. But now if you're talking about top 24 WPA guys or WNT guys, then it's going to be a different – that's the part that's going to be more interesting to me.
And the Josh domino is kind of where it started, Mike. And so how is that going to play itself out? Now, I know he said, I'm going to play Hanoi and I'll keep on playing WNT, but I don't think at this point people are giving him a whole lot of faith when it comes to things that he says, right? And so and I wouldn't blame him, right? Like if everyone goes WNT and he decides to stay WPA, I'm not going to blame him because he would clean up over there, Yeah. So,
yeah, we'll see. Like I said, I think that they will always find ways to rationalize allowing people like Josh to play wherever he's needed or wanted.
Well, you can always get like a promoter's exemption, I'm sure. I'd imagine that there's some.
I don't think. Promoter exemption is not going to get you into a tournament, a WPA tournament, if you're banned.
Well, then I'm sure that's going to make Predator real happy, Mike, would be my guess.
Well, so. I mean, believe me, obviously these discussions have gone on, in rooms where we're not privy to up to this point. So, no one's Predator, WPA, Josh, Matchroom. They're not just all waiting for Hanoi and then they're going to start decide what to do. I mean, these discussions have been going on between people this whole time long. We just don't know what they are. We don't know. People have already got their plans ready for the day after Hanoi. We just don't know what they are.
I'm sure discussions are happening, but are they happening between the two parties that they need to be happening with,
no,
like in WPA and
Matchroom and WPA aren't having any discussions that I'm aware of. But, the key players, the Joshes, the Albans, the Marios, the Dennis Graves, the people like that, decisions I would think have probably been made from most of them on what they're going to do, but who knows?
I mean, at the end of the day, for some of these guys, you just got to do what's in the best interest of you being able to sustain and make money, So whichever route that takes you on, good luck with it is what I would say. But at least from like a business standpoint, right? Like, cause they're all their own entity, Mike. And when it comes to the fan side of it, like we want to see the best players competing, right? We want people to have their ability to go wherever they want and play wherever they want and all these things. And this is where all these politics are real unfortunate. But I don't see any traction being made either, Mike, between any of them. Now, some of the things that are concerning are seeing these qualifiers for Hanoi because there was quite a few qualifiers.
4 qualifiers with the top 16 all getting a spot. So that's a 64. That's a quarter of your field.
That's a lot of players, Mike, for your
field. So basically, if you just show up there by the 4th qualifier, if there's more than 16 people,
you might make it in the bracket, Mike. Is what I'm saying.
Well, you're the one that's going to be over there. Bring your cue and lace them up for that 4th qualifier. You'll probably.
I might listen. I might be a Cinderella. You never know. You ever seen a 16 seed upset a 1 seed, Mike? I could be that guy. You never know. Yeah, we'll break some hearts out there.
So yeah, that's a little problematic, and we've talked before about where I think I've said before where I think the WPA's real leverage is, and it's not in banning players. It's in stopping national federations and promoters from putting non-sanctioned events on in their country.
Well, and they've said that they do that already, Mike. He said it last year. Yeah, listen, I've
They
called.
tried to do it last. They tried to clear Hanoi. They tried to stop Hanoi again this year. But they're going to get into some countries where they're going to make it really difficult for Matchroom to have an event there. And so, how many of these battles does Matchroom want to go up against, where they got to spend half their time just figuring out whether the event's going to go off? That to me is where the real leverage is with the WPA, and if they had it the way they want it, Matchroom events would be limited to the UK and the US, right? They just stop from going into all the countries in Europe where the EPBF has strength, and they stop going into all the countries in Asia where the ACBS has strength, and that now you got a problem. So then at that point, if it got to that stage, now the WPA is the one stealing from strength.
Well, sure, but then you still got to hope that you get the players to come on board with you, Mike, which is, going to be a whole other part of this fight that they're up against.
Yeah, of course.
Because you can't have one without the other. Like they have to be. It's a package deal here in order to get these promoters to want to put on these events, right? They want the stars to show up to those countries, right? I'm sure they want SVB out there in China. They want Federer out there in China competing.
Federer will be in China competing.
Is he playing the China Open?
Oh, he's playing Ho Chi Minh, right?
Is he?
Yeah, I think so. I thought so.
Isn't that a WPA event, Mike, or am I mistaken there?
Yeah, it is. Well, I mean, they're all going to play in all the WPA events they can before Hanoi. Anything before Hanoi is kind of like a free. They can take a pass. So
you're talking Federer or Filler? Who are you talking about here?
Filler. Oh, I'm sorry. You were talking Federer.
Yeah. Okay, I was gonna say, hold on a minute, Mike, because I don't remember hearing that part of it.
Those F players, they got to start getting different names.
I mean, they're Europeans, whoever they are. So yeah.
Federer is not a European. Mike.
Oh, okay, Mike.
With the program.
Do you want to have that discussion right now, Mike? Because we can. I'll be glad to have that debate with you as well. No, listen. This like the Josh thing. He's out there in China, obviously competing. He'll be a massive favorite to win. Although, I mean, there's plenty of monsters out there who, and they put their bracket kind of weird, Mike, don't they? Where they have like a Chinese side of the bracket and then a world side of the bracket, right?
International side.
Yeah. I kind of like that, to be honest with you.
Like it if you're a European or American player, that's for sure.
Yeah. But the players, like I said, are a big part of it. I'm curious to see, like the middle of the pack guys. I get it, you know what I mean, and I'm not too concerned one way or the other. Like we're not giving anyone shit for Mario He playing a hayball event, or Dennis Grave for playing out there, or Sanjin for playing in the China Open. I mean, I get it. They can't. They're doing what's best for them.
Yeah, it's still opportunity. They got a freebie. They got a free pass right now. Take it.
And you don't got to fade as many monsters right now, Mike. So why wouldn't you go and take a swing, and you can build up that bankroll to better yourself going forward.
Yeah.
But all eyes are for sure going to be on Hanoi. I'm curious if we're going to have any other named players who are going to be sitting out that event, Mike, especially if they're like in contention for things or up for consideration when it comes to, Moscone Cup or
Reyes Cup. For a lot of these guys, it's national and regional, events in their part of the country and in their part of the world, whether it's you're going to lose your spot in the SEA Games. You're going to lose your spot in the.
Well, that's where Carlo is going to be a big question mark as well, Mike.
Other kind of games, show, right? So, it's going to be interesting to see.
Do we know if Carlo's playing Hanoi, Mike?
I don't know.
I don't know either, but he would be one to keep your eyes on, because we still consider him somewhat of a dark horse kind of favorite to make the the Team Asia,
Yeah.
right? You know, so and I think he deserves to be on that team, but the politics involved with it and where he's playing at, things like that, how much is that going to play a role? And I'm sure he makes decent money through his federation as well, right, Mike? Don't those players get a pretty decent stipend?
They don't get a lot of money in the Philippines, but he gets for them. It's there's only a couple of players in the Philippines who get what would be considered a decent amount. So.
Yeah. More questions over the coming weeks. Do you think that they end up following through with the ban, Mike?
Yeah, I think at this point they really kind of, there's been no talks for long enough now where I think it's like, okay, we just gotta. This is what we're saying. So I would expect so, because I think they're going to have to wait at least an event or two to see what kind of traction they have or what kind of traction they've lost. So yeah, I would expect that there would be. I'm trying to think of what all impacts them after Hanoi. What are the events after Hanoi? You got the
It's interesting because you got that Predator event out in Puerto Rico that is very proudly not non-sanctioned, so that can't be a coincidence.
I'm curious to see how many players are going to go down there because it's really not much money. You've got the International Open, which is
that a sanctioned event, Mike?
It's kind of because,
or is that like we're sanctioning you? One of those type of deals.
I don't know where that's at yet, because I know that I have spoken with Pat Fleming, and he's kind of, poking around trying to say, okay, what happens if I sanction? What happens if I don't sanction? Who can play? Who can't play? What if I just do this? What if I bring the prize money down under 40,000 or 50,000, as far as added money, and find some other way to put the money into the prize fund? Or what if I sanction it, but just let anybody play who wants to play? What are they going to do? Come in and shut my door?
That's such bullshit, Mike. I mean,
it is, and that's the thing. The players and promoters are getting stuck in the middle of this, and it's just like, okay, Matchroom and WPA, just find a way to figure it out. Find a way to figure it out so that the players don't have to fade this.
So why aren't they figuring it out, Mike? I'll ask you. If the I mean, listen,
Matchroom has stopped talking about it for quite a while now. I think they're just tired of it, and they just think it's time for them to move on. So, and that's their prerogative. WPA, if you talk to WPA, they'll ask, we're willing to basically give away the farm. What's the problem? And it'll come back to the contract that never got signed, and the insistence on recognizing the WNT 9-ball rankings as the official WPA rankings, or whatever the potholes are.
You think that's still a major sticking point at this point, Mike?
I don't know. I mean, otherwise they'd still be talking, right? So we'll see. We'll see.
I feel like you want to say more, Mike.
Well, I said it the other day. I just don't understand, and I'm going to ask Ishan at WPA this very question: is why don't you just, if you're willing to give them sanctioning without any fees, if you're willing to basically accept WNT rankings, as WNT rankings official, but you've got your WPA rankings as well, because there are a couple 9-ball tournaments that aren't in the WNT, however you want to fade it out. If you're willing to do that, basically give it away for nothing, just to be able to say you're sanctioned and let's get all this other garbage out of the way, then why not just say,
I'm all with it.
We recognize the World 9-Ball Tour as a professional pool league.
Across the board.
We recognize the NFL. We recognize the NHL, and we're not, it doesn't have to follow all our rules with international football or international basketball or FIBA or whatever the case is. Just say, okay, we recognize WNT. You're your own entity. Players can play in that. And then basically what it kind of does is shift the onus on Matchroom and the World 9-Ball Tour to start telling players to start deciding whether or not they're going to impose any kind of penalties on players who play in a WPA event that they're not now allowed to play in, when there's a matchroom event going on. Then you kind of shift the burden from one side to the other.
I mean, it kind of gets forgotten, but I mean, their willingness to not take a sanctioning fee kind of does shift that burden a little bit, Mike.
It's never been about a fee. It's more been about control and ownership of things like ball, the world rankings.
So
like
ego, it's a pissing contest.
No, well, I mean, Matchroom's got to think that there's value in that imprimatur on their rankings and on their tour.
I don't know what that word means, Mike. I got to Google if you're going to be using shit like that. Okay, there you go. Okay, that I can understand. All right, there you go. Dumb it down for me, Panozzo.
So I see Carol Boyce in there. Carol Boyce, I thought you were going to the hospital because you got back problems.
Hey, by the way, Carl, if you're free tomorrow, I'd love to have you on. Don't go to the hospital, buddy. I'd love to have you on and talk Reyes Cup if you're free tomorrow.
He's not going to tell you anything. I sent him messages earlier today. He didn't tell me anything. I said, when do they have to announce the wildcards? He said, soon. I said, what does that mean?
You got to put him on a hot mic, Mike. You got to put him on a hot mic, and then maybe he'll slip up.
Hours? Are we talking days? Oh, he's in the emergency room right now. Wow.
Is that? Oh, well, hope you're doing well. All right, buddy. Yeah, you know, Mike.
He can text while he's lying on his back.
Well, yeah, you still got the thumbs, you know.
Yeah.
You know, Mike. I don't know, like where this is gonna go.
Where does Madeline stand on all this?
Well, you know, she don't care. She don't care.
Pro Matchroom, pro WPA. Madeline, what are you? Pro Matchroom or WNT?
She's just pro snacks, right? You just want a snack, huh? Is that what it is? She just wants some ice cream. That's all she is. She's bought off pretty easily, Mike. Trust me. No, it's the players are still getting the shit into the stick, you know, and both sides have to budge a little bit, you know, and have some give and take. I think continuing to have this conversation, while it's unfortunate, is still necessary because players still deserve better effort from both parties.
I agree.
And so, whatever we got to do to help just keep some fire with them, you know, at least on my end, we'll continue to do. And but the door is always open for anyone from the WPA to come on. I'm sure they watch from time to time. I'm going to try to get Emily on at some point in the next week or so as well. Although I hit her up this weekend, Mike, she said she ain't been home in 6 weeks, and you know she's been busy, and you know whatever else. And so, but it's the calendar is full, which is great, Mike. You know, players are traveling all over the world and living out their dreams. Can I get down, babe? Which is awesome. There's good prize funds all over the place, which is great as well, Mike. You know, that the China Open was a great event for years, Mike. You know, it was so deep, and I really enjoyed watching it, seeing the prize fund out there in the Middle East and the Qatar Open last year. Like, there's opportunity for players to make some good money, and it's just a matter of, can we all just get along, you know, or at least play nice a little bit, you know. They're never gonna be besties, right? And I think they've long burned that bridge, especially heading back to whatever it was last year or whatever, you know, before this event started. And so whatever they got to do to just figure it out, man, just figure it out, you know.
Yeah, I said it before. It's like, you know, stay in the same house, just sleep in different bedrooms. You know, it's like the husband and wife who don't want it anymore, but
yeah,
just push through it for the betterment of the kids. So
yeah, at least until they graduate, you know. At least until, right, Mike? So I'm going to take off here in a couple of days, and I'll be out in California. Going to go see my man Collins. Going to be working the Brendan Crockett Memorial. Then taking a little bit of time off, and before I head to Vietnam, and I'm super pumped for that trip, Mike. I'm just excited, like seeing all the posts and all the players and the fans and the pool rooms, and I'm just excited to just dive on into that culture, Mike, and just see people who love pool like that. And that's why I get
hang around with Federer, you'll get free meals everywhere.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I'm gonna tell them, you need me to take the photo? I'll take the photo. Whatever it takes to keep on budget there, Mike, for sure. No, but it's going to be a great time. After that, going to Manila, Mike. I hear you're going to be heading out there.
I will be in
The
Manila.
Reyes Cup.
I will be in Manila.
I'll get us.
I've already got Carl Boys, doing some advanced scouting for a decent place for cocktails. Although the event in Manila.
Wait a minute, Mike. Carl for cocktails. Usually you're the go-to guy for cocktails.
But yeah, but he's been there. He was just there. It's like, but the thing with the tournament in the Reyes Cup is going to go from 7:00 at night until midnight every night.
Wait, say that again. Is it really?
Yeah.
Well, it's all right for me, Mike. I mean, I know you're old, but I'll go to bed late anyway. Well,
no, it's actually probably going to work out well for me because it'll help with jet lag because I'll be staying awake upside down anyways, right? So hours wise. So
you better not be because I'm rooming with you out there in Manila, so I need you to be on some kind of schedule out there, big guy.
We'll have to see about that.
Yeah. No, but it's going to be a great time. Look, these players are getting more opportunity than ever, which is awesome, Mike. And I love the fact that by everyone working so hard, it's kind of like forcing the next guy to step up their game, because that does benefit the players. But they still got to have the ability to play in different, wherever they want. And so it's so much more global than it's ever been. For once, I'll be glad to be over there because I won't have to be getting up at 4 a.m. in order to sweat some matches. But nevertheless, it's going to be.
You have to get up at 4 a.m. You have to get up at 4 a.m. to do the podcast in the U.S., buddy.
Well, you're probably right, actually, now that I think about it. Yeah, you're probably right.
Up, pal. And you're not doing it. You're not. If we're sharing a room, you're not doing it in the room.
I just bought some new mic cords. They're coming with me in the backpack. I'm going to be gone for like 5 weeks, though, Mike. You believe that? 5 weeks. I'm going Sacramento, Lake Tahoe.
Get your laundry redone before you hit Manila.
Vietnam, or Da Nang, Hanoi, Manila, back to California before I eventually come back home right before Halloween. I couldn't miss Halloween, Mike. Super important
you got it,
for the girls. Anyway, Carl, if you're feeling better tomorrow, we'd love to have you on. If not, then I'll try to get you out there next week or try to get you on the show in the next couple of days. I'm still going to be knocking on Emily's door to see if we can get her on as well. Carl says we'll take you to La Cafe.
The LA Cafe, yeah.
The LA Cafe?
That's a step up, Carl. Thanks. I know that one.
Mike, you're my go-to guy when it comes to good meals and good drinks, buddy. So you better start. We will find them indeed. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us. Mike, you got anything else before we get out of here?
No, I'm talked out.
Well, keep your eyes peeled because there's more stuff on the horizon. The Battle of the Bull is coming up in the next, what is it, Mike? Like week or a few days, or when does it start? Actually, I don't even know.
I don't know what the date is, but yeah, soon.
All right, check. Yeah. before Vietnam is the Battle of the Bull. That much we can guarantee. We will see you guys soon. The next time I'll be live, we'll probably be out in Sacramento if I don't do something tomorrow. So thanks everybody.